Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our discussion on the optional Showroom module in Design Manager. My name is Brad, and I'll be hosting the demonstration. If you have questions during the webinar, feel free to enter them into the questions pane under Go to Webinar panel. If the question is outside of the scope of today's discussion, please email them to support@designmanager.com. Lastly, if you miss a portion of the webinar or want to review any of our past discussions, you can go to our YouTube channel at Design Manager Inc., Design Manager INC, for a complete listing of all sorts of topics, including our short quick start videos, helpful tutorials, and longer discussions of our webinars, which we've categorized in our project management courses, accounting courses, and all of our weekly webinars like today's discussion. Okay. The optional Showroom module in Design Manager provides a system for handling orders for simple furnishings, treatments, reupholstery, etc. for clients who don't require a full design project. Commonly, these furnishings will be currently or readily available in your company's showroom or inventory. In short, the showroom allows you to easily create quotes for clients describing the goods and services to be provided. The quote is the preliminary agreement used while defining the details of the merchandise and services. One could think of the quote as analogous to the proposal in traditional Design Manager projects. Upon the client accepting the contents of the quote, it can then be converted into an order, and the order represents a more binding association with the client, with the inherent assumption that the merchandise has been approved and is now awaiting delivery and final invoicing, etc. This secondary phase of the showroom process doesn't have a corresponding function for projects, and it really showcases the specialization of the showroom module. Another benefit of the showroom is that it consolidates the access to many functions in Design Manager, such as invoicing, delivery tickets, etc., into a single interface for ease of use. So let's get started with the Quotes and Orders window itself. So we're on our Showroom tab, our Quotes and Orders frame, and our first button is the Quotes and Orders, which gets us to our Quotes and Orders window, which is logically divided into two tabs, one for quotes and one for orders, that can be monitored and processed independently. Let's look at the Quote tab first. Here we see all of the active quotes currently being formulated or awaiting approval from the client. We have a Select By option menu along the top where we can see all of the open quotes, or we can narrow it down for a particular client, such as Carol. And we can see all of the quotes for Carol, or we can go to a particular designer or salesperson, and we can see all of Kelly's open quotes as well. Let's drop that back to all so we can see all of them. Let's take a look at some of the columns available to us. First, we have the unique quote number, which is automatically generated for us, as we'll see shortly. Then we have the description of the quote or the name of the potential purchase, the client's code and name, the designer or salesperson code. Then we have an optional client's purchase order number. This is more used for commercial clients, particularly in cases where they may need an identifying number for their billing purposes. Then we have a variety of dates, including the open date. This is the date that the quote was initially created, followed by and closely associated with the quoted date. This is when we generated and accepted the quote document itself. And then we have the optional revised date, which allows us to indicate to the client at what point most recently the quote has been updated. We can see all the quote totals, the estimated quote total, optionally including sales tax if applicable. And then our final column is the deposit status, where we can see either the requested deposit amount, or if it's been received, the amount received, client's check number or payment method, date, etc. Now, quotes can be converted into orders upon the client's approval. So let's take a look at the tab on which they're contained, which is the Orders tab. We also have our Select By option in the top left, same exact options as we have on our Quotes tab. Now we have the order number. The quote number is converted automatically into the order number for consistency, so it follows the same order number throughout the entire process. Then we have our description or name column again, followed by the client code and name, the salesperson, there's our client's purchase order number, and now we have some different dates available for us on this tab. We have the quoted date, which was the date the quote itself was generated and accepted, followed by the ordered or acknowledged date. That's the date that the order was created and accepted. Next, we have the delivered date. That's the date that the merchandise was delivered or scheduled to be delivered through the delivery ticket system, as we'll see shortly. We have the invoice date, the date that the client invoice was generated, the invoice number, the estimated order total, any deposit received, any payments on invoices received, followed by the current estimated balance due, and lastly, the original date of the quote itself is the final column. Now, let's start the process by creating our quote ourselves. So we're going to go back to our quotes tab, and we're going to go to the add button in the bottom left. We can see right away that the order number is automatically created for us. We don't have to create our own unique order number. Design Manager will do that for us in comparison to the project system where you do have to create your own project code, or at least accept the one that's defaulted for you. The description, now in lieu of a project name, we would enter in a short phrase of what goods and services are being provided. Let's use custom sofa as our example. We have the open date, defaults to today's date, but of course you could change that if desired. Client, if it's an existing client, we could select it or input it from our existing client glossary, or we could create a new one. So let's imagine that we have a brand new client coming in, and we'll go ahead and claim the client as well. So we'll click the Add button right on the Client Glossary search, and that gets us to our new client window. Now notice that the client code is defaulting from the order number to maintain consistency all the way through. I could change it here, of course, if desired, but I like to have the client code match my order number so I can track it perfectly. So we'll go ahead and input our client, Garrett Brennan. I have a few types that I use to classify my clients. I have one for referral and walk-in, completely optional. You could add as many as you'd like if such information is important to you. Address, city, state, zip code, contact. If it's a different individual than Mr. Brennan, I could certainly change that or input it here as well. Phone number, fax we don't need quite honestly. Email, quite handy if I'm going to email quotes or orders or invoices to Mr. Brennan. gmail.com. Website, more traditionally for a commercial client, of course. Phone, I could have additional phone numbers. How about work phone? And I could even have a third phone if necessary as well. The salesperson, let's say that Ashley will be handling this client. Monthly finance charges and dates. If I was charging a finance charge on unpaid invoices, I could input that information. Traditionally, that's done a bit more for traditional projects in Design Manager, but it's applicable here as well. Sales tax code, you can input that as well. Tax ID, generally for commercial or particularly nonprofit clients whereby they might not be taxable and you want to record their tax ID, you could do so here. Invoice terms upon receipt. Click OK. And now we have our client created for Mr. Brennan. And if we choose, notice all of that information we just entered defaults for us. And again, we could use this if Mr. Brennan continues services with us in the future. We just pull up his client code and all of that would be stored for us. We can see we even have our zip code, our sales tax code defaulted for us, and the sales manager as well, or the salesperson or manager. Now onto the delivery and shipping tab. Let's see what information is stored for us here. All of this information from the billing address automatically defaults into the client delivery site address. Essentially, this is going to be where the merchandise will go for final shipping to the client. It's going to print on the quote and order as such if desired, and delivery tickets, etc. Now, if it was going to be sent somewhere else, another house, home, or residence for Mr. Brennan, we could change it here as well. So rather than the final product shipping, as indicated in the first frame, we also have our purchase order shipped to. Where are the products from the vendors going to originally be delivered? Now, most traditionally, they won't be going right to Mr. Brennan's facility. Let's imagine that we're going to fabricate the custom sofa and receive all of the merchandise, and then we'll deliver it to Mr. Brennan. So let's put a ship to code of our warehouse in. And if I was going to have everything shipped right to Mr. Brennan, you saw that the create from above option was available, where I could create a shipping location just for his residence at 61 Palmer Drive as well. So you have a full array of addresses that are going to be necessary to communicate all of the purchase order, shipping, and all of the delivery to Mr. Brennan's residence. Next, we have our defaults tab, and here we can see some of the other information that we entered. The purchase order designer extension comes right from Ashley's employee record. We have our client deposit and default percentage, and whether or not to include sales tax coming from the company settings. Our client invoice term defaulted from the client. Purchase order side mark, we can input that. How about Vita Nova Designs as my standard, and custom sofa. And I'll go ahead and use the append location to side mark as well. And of course, I can even input some notes if desired. I might want to say, how about I made the initial quote today? And I'll put my initials in as well. And just like that, we very quickly and easily created both the client and our quote. And there it is. And now we can see our custom sofa quote for Mr. Brennan. We have the open date, but no quoted date yet, revised date, and certainly no totals for the quote because we don't have any specifications created, etc. To that end, let's go ahead and start adding some specifications or fabricating or laying out our custom sofa by going to our quotes and orders frame, and now we'll click on Showroom Specifications, which for those of you who are familiar with the project management side of Design Manager, the specification window should seem exactly as you're familiar with on that side of the application. Entering goods and services for a quote or order is done in the exact same manner. So we could go ahead and click, put our quote in first. Now notice, I can input my quote number and then begin to input my specifications, but I could also type in custom sofa, and Design Manager is automatically finding it for me. I could even start in typing Mr. Brennan's name, and it's going to track down that quote as well. So I don't need to remember the quote number. I can just put in the description, the name of the client, and Design Manager is going to find it for me. And now I could go ahead and click Add and start creating my specifications or inputting them into the specifications window. But as I stated before, very commonly, you might be fulfilling the quote and order for merchandise in your inventory, or that you frequently purchase and have stored in your catalog. So you could use the inventory and catalog buttons to do so. Since I frequently fabricate or refinish sofas and couches, I've created a template in one of my catalog to provide a basic framework to do so. So I'm going to click my catalog button, and on my catalog number search, I'm going to use our custom sofa catalog template that I previously created. Quantity of 1 is just fine. Let's go ahead and put that in the living room. And if I click OK on the Add Item from Catalog window, we can see I have a custom sofa item already brought in to the specifications for the order. And if we edit this, we can see I have very basic information about a custom sofa that I want to fabricate. Frame, fabric, trim, etc. No vendors associated, no costs, etc. of course. So as time goes on and I start getting more information about truly what I'm going to be fabricating for this custom sofa, I could input all of that information. So let's do so very quickly as our example. So I'm going to edit our sofa frame and just put a vendor in. Let's say we get that from Century. I can go ahead and put the cost. Let's say that is 3,200 units each. I'm going to use my next arrow, and that gets us to our sofa fabric. Let's get this from Kravit. And let's say that it is $85 per yard, or we're going to need, oh, I don't know, 16 yards. Next again gets us to our trim. We'll stick with Kravit here. Let's say the trim is 25, and we'll get 10 yards there. And as you can see, I can very quickly input information about my custom sofa. And from here, I can go ahead and do my purchasing and those types of things as well. All of this is just like inputting your specifications that you do in your traditional project specifications as well. Same exact interface, same exact methodology. And as we're crafting our custom sofa, behind the scenes, our quote is automatically being updated. There's our current price of the sofa, including tax, and our deposit requested amount, 50%, including tax, is indeed $33,409. Now, once that we have the specifications to our liking, we can print and generate an official quote. Doing so is quite simple. Just highlight the quote, as I've done so, and click the print button. This brings up our print quote window. The quote date defaults to today's date. Let's imagine that I was working at night and I want this to be reflect tomorrow's date. So I could change that quite easily. Whether or not to include pictures on the quote. The style, I prefer the modern style of my quotes and orders just because I use the modern format with all of my documents, and I like that consistency throughout all of my correspondence with my vendors and clients. The optional revise date. As I make changes to the quote, I can input a revision date to indicate to Mr. Brennan that, hey, this is the last date that I've made an update. I could email it directly to Mr. Brennan. And if I want to ignore any company settings for letterhead and those types of things, particularly when emailing, I could use the override letterhead setting. If we click OK, we can see our quote preview. And there it is. And there's our quote title, my logo at the top. Notice that I've indeed increased the day by one date. Quote number, description of the quote, the billing address for Mr. Brennan, and then the body of the document looks very similar to our proposal, etc. We have our location, the description, the reference number, quantity and unit and measure, unit and total pricing, sales tax at the bottom. We can see our requested deposit conveniently highlighted in bold. I have some custom quote remarks that are being displayed, and even an optional approval signature date in line as well. And from here, just like any of your documents, I could print, I could email export right from this window. Once everything is to my liking and I don't see any glaring errors, I can simply close the print preview window and accept the quote. And when we do, we now see our original quote date where we open the quote as of 10/15, and the quoted date, the day of the document itself, is on 10/26. Pardon me, 10/25 for the open date and 10/26 for the quoted date. Now, of course, design concepts are going to evolve and changes are inevitable. Now let's imagine that Garrett wants a few custom pillows with a sofa. Well, we can easily add them to the quote. I can go ahead and click my items button, which really just jumps me right to the specifications window, but it's already positioned to our custom sofa quote. And I have some pillows that Mr. Brennan wanted right in my inventory, so I'm going to use my Add from Inventory button, select our pillows, Let's get 2 of those, put those into the living room as well, and click OK. And just like that, I've brought in 2 of our pillows to go along with the custom sofa as well. Once again, behind the scenes, our quote is automatically updating again, and my requested deposit amount is increasing as well. So now I can print the quote again, and I may want to remain my quote date at 10/26, but let's say we revise this on 10/27. I'll have my pictures included. I'll keep my style as modern. And now, very subtly, we can see the original quoted date and the most recent revision date as well, just to communicate that changes have been made over time to the client. And we can see our second pillow items are now available, and our subtotal, tax total, and requested deposit have all increased as imagined. And again, just by closing the print preview, we can accept that version of the quote, and we can see our original open date, our quoted date, and now our most recent revised date as well. Now, the next step would be for Mr. Brennan to provide us with the deposit on the quote, initializing the conceptual transformation of the quote into an order. So, just like any funds coming into Design Manager, we would then go to our Accounting tab, our Accounts Receivable frame, and click our Cash Receipts button. Just like we're adding a deposit or a retainer for a project or a payment on an invoice, we would click Add. And in the project or order selection, just enter in the order number, custom sofa, what have you, and Design Manager will pull it up for us. Let's imagine that Mr. Brennan gave us a check exactly for our requested amount, so we'll go ahead and process or enter the cash receipt. So our amount on our check was $35.7803. Let's say that we received this on the 28th. Payment type was a check. Check number, optionally put in there representing the check from Mr. Brennan. All we have to do then is select or tag our deposit on our custom sofa, and then we can see our deposit amount is now increased, as has our total receipt. Since that matches the amount perfectly, we have a difference of 0, and Design Manager will go ahead and allow us to accept the receipt. From here, all we have to do is post to process. But it's important to note now, let's jump over to our existing tab, and we have our deposit of our check from Mr. Brennan highlighted. Notice that behind the scenes, Design Manager is actually recording this funds as a retainer, rather than traditionally where you have a deposit on our proposal in the project management aspect of Design Manager. Since the funds often may be provided before a quote is generated or can change so dramatically throughout the inception and creation of the quote, Design Manager stores these funds as a retainer, and this may be important for us to recognize when we go ahead and look at our invoicing to the client in just a little bit. Back on our Showroom tab, we can go to our Quotes and Orders, and we can see now that we have no longer in our deposit status column showing our requested amount, we're showing our received amount, and very conveniently the check number and date upon which we received it. Now that's a very quick description on entering in cash receipts in Design Manager. For more information, go back to our YouTube channel and review our Accounting Course 1, Client Deposit Retainers, where we go into much greater detail on a lot of those topics. Once we've received the deposit, if one was required, we can easily convert the quote into an order. All we have to do is highlight the quote, as I already have, and go ahead and click the Make Order button. That gets us to our Make Print Order window. Looks very similar to our Print Quote window. We have the original order date defaulting to today. Let's imagine that we want to reflect that we received this after the check, so we'll go ahead and change that to the date we received the check. We have a revised date for orders as well, along with the options for pictures, emailing directly to the client, and our style. Again, I'm going to use modern to make my documents as consistent as possible. Click OK. And now we can see our order. Our title is Order Acknowledgement. We're maintaining that same order number all the way through the process. Our order description, you can see our updated date, Mr. Brennan's address, and then the body looks very, very similar to our quote our quote as well, except along our totals region, we can actually see our deposit amount being applied and conveniently the check number as well with the estimated balance due for the future. And I even have some customer order acknowledgement remarks as well. If we close and accept, now on our quotes tab, we no longer see 10,005 as it is now on our order tab. So here we can see we're maintaining our order or our quote number, or now our order number. And of course, we keep our same description, client code, salesperson, etc. We see the original quoted date. Now we see our order date. Followed by that, we have our delivery date, invoice date, as we saw before. We have our estimated total, and we can see our deposit received, our estimated balance due as well. Now, if during the order phase, let's say that additional merchandise is desired, or there's really fundamental changes to the design concept, we can revert back. We can convert an order back into a quote if necessary, very easily. All you have to do in that case, edit the order and use the requote button. When we do that and click OK to save the order, it drops off the orders tab and is back on our quote tab, though we are still keeping our funds associated with that order. It just allows us to sort of refresh the entire process with more flexibility, again, particularly if there's wholesale changes being made. Let's go back and put our order back in. That was the 28th, and there we go. And accept, and now we have our order again. Now it's important to note that the quote stage can be bypassed entirely. If the client has already decided on the merchandise and wants to proceed and is ready to go, you can go right to making an order. On my orders tab, I can go ahead and just click the add button and go right to a new order window, which is very, very similar to the quote. Obviously, it looks almost identical, and input all of our information. So the quoting stage is entirely optional. You can go right to orders if desired. Okay. Now, as I alluded to previously, the Showroom module conveniently provides access to many appropriate functions in Design Manager right from the Quotes and Orders window, one of which is the ability to make delivery tickets. Once we have finished the construction of the sofa and we have the pillows ready, we can create a delivery ticket as the shipping manifest for our delivery team. You can, of course, use the traditional delivery tickets window to manually create the delivery ticket, but the Showroom module can really automate the process. And here's how. All we have to do is click the delivery button on the orders tab. And from here, I can put in my delivery ticket date. If I'm scheduling delivery for a few days in advance, or if I've already done delivery, I can change that date. Let's go ahead and put that on November 1st, whether or not to include pictures. And I can make a delivery ticket for all of my orders, or I can narrow it down for a particular date range of orders, or for even a single client. And let's go ahead and just make one for Mr. Brennan by putting in his order number. I can use the Set Shipped Quantity option. This is going to indicate that the merchandise has not only been delivered or transported from our showroom or warehouse, but also indicate the merchandise is being shipped or received by the client. Now I'm going to skip that so I can show how to manually record the shipped quantity if desired. So all we have to do now in the Generate Delivery Tickets window is click OK. And we're going to create a delivery ticket for our custom sofa and the pillows. So we can see our delivery ticket, the ticket number, the order number and description, the employee associated with it, the delivered date, you can see as 11/1, where to go. In other words, this is coming from the delivery tab on the quote and order, where the delivery team should be transporting the sofa and pillows. And then we can see the location name, the description of the items, the quantity ordered, the quantity that was ordered from us, not the purchase order quantities or those types of things. What did Mr. Brennan order with us? What is to be delivered today? And the quantity shipped. This is left blank, and it's to be recorded by the delivery team, indicating how much, well, hopefully all, of the merchandise that was actually received by the client. And then we can even see a signature and date along the bottom where the client or an authorized individual can sign as acknowledgement of receipt of the merchandise as well. If we close and accept, now we can see we have our delivered date entered, and we can access our delivery ticket by staying on our showroom tab and going to our documents frame, where we go to the showroom delivery tickets. Let's put in our order number, and there is our delivery ticket. Now, if I didn't use the set shipped option as I indicated, I could go ahead, when the delivery ticket is returned to me by the delivery team, I could go ahead and put the shipped quantities in if desired. And to do that, we just edit the delivery ticket, and for each piece of merchandise, just edit and changed the actual shipped quantity to what was truly received by the client. 1 for the sofa, 2 for the pillows. And as I do so, you can see the quantity shipped values increase as well. And now they match both the quantity delivered and the ordered quantity as well. Click OK to save. And that information, if we go back to our specifications, edit our pillows. If we go to our status tab, where we generally see information about the proposal and an invoice, along the bottom, we can see our delivery ticket number, the date of the ticket, what we expected to deliver, and what was actually shipped as well. So all that information is there for your viewing as well on the items themselves. For more information about the delivery ticket system, which is often a lesser known feature in Design Manager, be sure to review our delivery tickets webinar, where I go into great detail and much more information about delivery tickets themselves in the program. Okay, now after a successful delivery to Mr. Brennan, it's time to create a client invoice to reflect the transfer of ownership of the merchandise. Again, the showroom module has easy access to the invoicing function. So let's close our specifications, go back to our quotes and orders window, back to orders, and just like we have our delivery option, we have a convenient button for creating invoices as well. Here we can input the date of the invoice. So let's imagine that that's perhaps the 5th of November. I can invoice all orders within a particular order date, or again for a particular range of clients. So let's create our invoice just for our order number and client number. And if we click OK, what Design Manager has done is automatically gone out to our client invoice window on the accounting tab, created an invoice for us. So we have our invoice number, the date that we entered on the invoice orders window, the order number and order description, our client code and name, the amount of the sale, the tax, and it's automatically applying the deposit retainer for us with the balance due. Now, if you don't use the invoice button, which in my opinion is the easiest method when using Showroom, you can still create invoices in a traditional manner. So let's delete or remove our unposted invoice for our order and create it manually, just as an example. So I can use my Add Invoice button, input our order, and here I could put a transaction description in if I desired, which I can't do actually from the invoice button on the showroom window. custom sofa and pillows. I have Ashley as my salesperson. I want to change my date to the 3rd, and I can select my items. But here, now I have to be responsible to input our deposit/retainer manually. I can conveniently see it listed in the available retainer field, but I have to input it manually if I'm invoicing through the invoicing window rather than using the invoice orders function from the quotes and orders tab window. So I'll go ahead and put that in myself, and you can see the balance due reduces as I do so. Click OK, and just like that, I'm basically doing the exact same thing. So from the Orders tab, using the Invoice button is quite convenient because it takes all the guesswork and potential for error out of the user's hands and allows Design Manager to do it all itself. From here, we can go ahead and print just like we're doing an invoice for a project. And we can see my invoice number, the order number, order description. November 3rd is our invoice date. There's our invoice terms being listed upon receipt. We're showing both the billing and site addresses here. Then we can see the items themselves. Our subtotal tax total, our deposit being applied for us with our balance due. And there's my custom invoice remarks as well. And if we close and accept, now we have our invoice created for us. And back on our quotes and orders window, we can see our order is already been closed. But we can always see it just by clicking all. And now we can see our quoted date, our order date, our deliver date, and our invoice date as well. Now, for much more information on invoicing in general, which is obviously a very important topic, be sure to review our accounting course 2, Client Invoices and Billing Reports. I go into great detail about the invoicing process and reports that can be used to help you as well. Lastly, Mr. Brennan would remit payment on that invoice, effectively completing the transaction. So now we can go ahead, go back to our accounting, cash receipts. Again, any funds coming into Design Manager for the showroom or for traditional projects, it all goes through your cash receipts window. You click add, put our order, oops. There we go. Put in our client for Mr. Brennan. We can see our invoice along the bottom, and if he pays in full, we select or tag our invoice, input our amount, say he paid exactly. Perhaps he put this on his MasterCard. We could put in his last 4 digits. Since our payment and receipt match our amount perfectly, go ahead and click OK, and we can post. And now back on our showroom, quotes and orders, back to our orders, show all, and we can see all of our information about our completed order. All of the dates, including the quoted date, order date, deliver date, invoice date, original total, how much we deposit received. Now we can see our payment received and our balance due being 0. So that goes through the entire life cycle of that quote into an order through invoicing and final payment, etc. Now, since that goes through the entire life cycle, let's call it, of the showroom, let's take the last few moments and go over some advanced topics and a few of the reports designed for the showroom module as well. First, if we go to File, Company Information and Settings, Advanced, on the Company Advanced Options window, we have a tab for Showroom. And here you have some ability to customize some functionality of the Showroom system. You can change your title of your quotes from quote to whatever you desire. The we call it an order acknowledgement. You could just change that to order if desired. Then you have the ability to determine what should close an order. You can close it when the client was invoiced, when it was delivered to the client, neither, which means you would close them manually, or both. And just like your proposal and invoice and other documents, you have the ability to change how certain component types are displayed on those documents. You can change the title of freight to shipping, crating, installation and labor, etc. You have the ability to display where those component types would be. Freight would be listed at the bottom, or the total regions of the quote and order, but you could list it beneath each item, or you could combine it into the total amount of the items themselves. Very similar, again, to the proposal and invoicing style options. Then you have the ability to suppress location headings, suppressing sales tax both individually on the quote and order, whether or not to show the delivery shipping address, unit prices, etc., are all available for you. And very importantly, you have the ability to put in custom quote remarks and custom order remarks as well, and they can be maintained and updated here. There are specialized showroom reports, which can be easily accessed right from the documents frame on your showroom tab. Just click your showroom reports, and they have their own subfolder listed for you, where you could run a report for open quotes. Which quotes have not yet been converted into orders? And you can narrow it down by client, quote number, quoted dates, etc. And whether or not to show the contact information in case you want to contact the client and see what might be the issue with the quote. And there we go. And we can see all of our open quotes listed and the applicable information about them, quoted date, open date, the amounts, etc. And you even have the deposit status information here as well. Looks, quite honestly, very much like your quote tab on the quotes and orders window. You have an order summary on the other side, so we can see any orders that are opened, orders that are closed, or both. And again, we could narrow it down per a particular order date range, by an individual salesperson or employee within the company, etc. And again, the option to show contact information if desired. And on the order summary, we can see all of the orders, whether they're closed or open in our case, all of the applicable information here, order date, invoice date, delivered date, etc., and the purchasing status information as well. If purchase orders have been created, those types of things. So it's a snapshot of the orders as they transpire, as they move through the design cycle themselves. And you can even have a profit analysis just for quotes and orders. So as you have a project profit analysis, we have one just for orders and quotes. And again, you can narrow it down by order dates, particular clients, employer, salespeople as well. And here we're just reviewing the profitability of all of our orders. Cost, actual cost, estimated costs versus the price to the client, the estimated price, actual price, profit, etc. So it was a nice subset of very important reports just for the showroom module. And with that, that takes us to the end of our discussion on the showroom module in Design Manager. I tried to go over all of the functions of the showroom module, how it's a centralized interface for all of the necessary functions to create your quotes and manage your orders, how you can get to all of the specialized functions like delivery tickets, invoicing, etc., all in one simple interface. Then we briefly went through some of the advanced options to customize the layout and information being shown on your quotes and orders documents, along with remarks and those types of things, and a few of the important reports to monitor your showroom quotes and orders as well, including their profitability. And with that, I thank you all for joining our discussion today, and I hope you attend another of our free webinars in the near future. Take care and have a great day.